thank you everybody who is joining us today. Welcome to the latest in the Japan House online events. This is in association with, I would have said, our current exhibition at Japan House. But this is in association, I suppose, with the global project, Architecture for Dogs, and the exhibition which is still in the gallery here in Japan House, London. It's conversations on architecture with Asif Khan and Hara Kenya. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. We're very privileged today. For those who are joining this seminar online, we have a few house rules for you to explain. Please note that your microphone and webcam will be disabled for the entire duration of the event. Please use the question and answer feature to type your questions for the speaker or hosts throughout the session. You can choose whether to attach your name or not, and this will go through a moderator at Japan House London, and we will be able to ask the questions at the time allotted at the end of the presentations and the discussion. Please note that the contents of this event will be streamed live on Facebook and on YouTube, where the recording will be archived later. Thank you very much indeed. So welcome everybody. My name is Simon Wright. I am the programming director at Japan House London, and it's a great privilege to be able to have two wonderful speakers here today. We have Hara Kenya, the eminent Japanese designer and exhibition director of our latest exhibition at Japan House London, Architecture for Dogs, which is scheduled to run until the 10th of January. Of course, we are in lockdown at the moment, so it's temporarily paused. Thank you very much, Hara-san. Hara-san is originally the Chief Creative Director for the Global Japan House Project, and he is the Creative Advisor for Japan House London, President of the Nippon Design Center, Professor at Tokyo's Musashi Art University, Art Director of Muji, and author of several very, very good books. I personally have a great debt to Hara-san. Thank you very much for all your guidance in this project. It's extraordinarily valuable, and I learn something new every day. So thank you very much indeed. And joining Hara-san today is Asif Khan. Thank you very much, Asif, for joining us. Asif is the globally renowned architect based here in London, and Asif became the 16th architect to join the Architecture for Dogs project with his new piece, I See You. Asif has founded his practice in East London in 2007, I believe, is that correct? And has worked internationally on a wide range of high-profile projects, including the award-winning UK Pavilion at the Astana Expo in 2017, the Hyundai Pro Pavilion at the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics in 2018, the blackest building on earth. I'm looking forward to maybe hearing a little bit about that later on. And of course, he's currently working on the new Museum of London at the Smithfield Market site here in London. Thank you very much, Asif, for joining us. We're very excited that you've joined this project and are exhibiting at Japan House London as the latest in the Architecture for Dogs exhibition. Thank you very much indeed. I would also like to introduce an interpreter for us. You may hear occasionally. This is Air Kurosawa. Thank you very much, Air, for helping us today as well. Thank you very much. Okay, so without further ado, Hara-san, maybe you could start us. What is the Architecture for Dogs project?
Hello, everyone. I'm Kenya Hara. As an art director of Architecture for Dogs, I'd like to explain the viewpoint of this project. Please see this video. So thank you. This is the first video to explain the basic concept of this project. So the Asif Khan is not joined yet. Okay, as you already know, the roots of dog is Uluf, and the mankind appeared beside the Uluf, and mankind creates all the all the pieces of dogs. Dogs is created. Dogs variation is created by human. That is a very surprising point, do you think? So I think the second point is very important. The dog is very popular. Every person who live on the earth will know about dogs. So the dog can be a great platform. So that is the second point. So how do you think if we created architecture not for the human, non-human? That is a very fantastic project. The reason why I select the architect, not select the product designer or a graphic designer. Architects are very important, very interesting person, I think. Architects always very eagerly to make a solution about some special criteria. If we can show them the very interesting criteria, the architects always very eagerly to make a solution. That's the point why I select the architects. And okay, that is an important point of the architecture of dogs.
Thank you. Can I ask, actually, Hara-san, why did you choose Asif for this project in that case?
Yeah. So about 8 years ago, I met Ash first in the Miami design exhibition. Design Miami. In Design Miami, we launched the first exhibition of architecture for dogs. And in Miami design, Ash and I were invited as a speaker to the special talk event. That's the first time for meet Ash. And Ash and I were introduced our own works at the time. And Ash showed me the very great interest to my work there. I introduced the exhibition of haptic exhibition, a senseware exhibition, and the exhibition of architecture for dogs. Ash showed me the very fantastic interest. So after that, we made an intercourse, and I become well known about Ash's creativity. He always explored a very fantastic material world and always challenged to explore the new field of architecture. So to invite special architects in London. So Asif is the best person, I think. That's the reason I invited Asif to this project.
So you've known each other for a few years, in this case. What a wonderful choice, I must say. It's been a pleasure to work with you, Asif, for this particular exhibition. Asif, I was wondering, if I may ask you, what was the brief that Hara-san gave you when you were invited?
Well, hi everyone, and Simon and Hara-san, thank you for introducing me, and thank you, Hara-san, for inviting me to this. It was a very surprising email to receive because I think, like, for architects, if we look at the list of people that are on there, there are lots of just fantastic people who you know, it's like a great honor to be part of that team, and it's a very challenging project actually to design something. See, so the brief was to create a piece of architecture for dogs, but specifically not to make a doghouse. It was to think of architecture in a way from the bottom up, and to challenge yourself as an architect to work with a new client. You know, to imagine we're so familiar to work with the human body. You know, the human body is a measurement which defines all of the design that we see in the world around us. You know, from the size of our phone to the size of a door, the size of a door handle, the height of a washing machine. All of these things are related to the human body. When you think about a different species, you can go back to basics, and you have to pay attention to how they observe the world and how you can create architecture that suits them. And it's a kind of, it's an open opportunity, but it's very challenging because as an architect, you want to show your work to the world as part of this exhibition, but also you don't want to turn your work into a symbol or you want to show your approach and to not caricature yourself. So this is a challenge actually, like how to get back to some pure creative mindset that allows you to respond. And maybe I can show you some images of some of the early work, sketches and so on.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay, so let me just, one moment. Okay, so share screen, excuse me. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so this is the finished piece. It's called I See You, and this is Vato, who's a Boston Terrier, who was the subject of let's say our first user test subject. But where the project started actually was this idea, and this is a discussion I had with Hara-san, who was saying, could you think about blackness in relation to this animal, and like the way we see the animal and the way the animal sees itself? And I was kind of thinking, like, what a strange feeling it would be for the dog to sort of disappear into something. Could it be a cozy feeling actually, that they are camouflaged in their own background? And when they're camouflaged like that, their black fur disappears in the background, and then the white spots might become something very beautiful and artistic that we didn't notice before. So this was kind of one aspect of it, and has a link obviously with some other architectural projects I'll show you. But I was also thinking about the way that dogs see the world around us. And I think just from a bit of observation, I found that dogs are smelling the ground first. So they think about the horizon, you could say. They're exploring the ground surface. And then they're looking upwards to explore what's beyond there. So they're kind of, their arc of discovery is like from the ground up. And I think they're very interested in surface, whereas our perception is about space, actually, like air and rooms, big volumes. They are interested in surface and the smell of surfaces. So they had this kind of arc of discovery. This then turned into like a form. And this form is like this, that there's a kind of arc, which from the ground up, which creates a table surface. And the dog can go into a kind of crater on that table surface. This is the idea. Maybe the dog gets this kind of feeling of wanting to slink into it and disappear into that blackness. That was I mean, I sketch a lot. I think I had more pleasure of sketching in this dog project than I've ever had. And what you find is you can get a lot of character into the. You draw more the dog than the architecture, and then the dog is helping you form the architecture. It's interesting. So then there was a process of kind of material exploration, which we went through to develop this project. So maybe I can say a bit about that. Yeah. Like this early on in the project, was thinking, how can we achieve that blackness? How can we achieve this this single surface that could like be as similar to a dog's coat, right, of fur? And there's a material which is you know, sheep's wool. This is my son here holding some sheep's wool. That you know, it's used traditionally in like traditional craft societies. They think of felting. The process of felting is many thousands of years old, and felting is thought of as the first textile process, right? The first thing that human beings made, the textile they could make. And if you think about like the relationship between man and you know, nomadic man and flocks of sheep and all that kind of stuff, it was part of a kind of ecosystem of tending the land and creating clothes for yourselves. It's something very beautiful about it. But the wonderful thing about felt is that you can make all kinds of objects and surfaces from it, single surfaces. It's something that can be made like DIY at home. And it's something, and I'll show you that, it's something that's a very primitive knowledge, or let's say fundamental knowledge of human beings. But you can apply it in many ways. And so we made this. This is actually the flattened version of the ICU piece. And by adding hot water and massaging by hand, this sort of fluffy felt surface begins to, fluffy woolen surface begins to kind of knit together and get flatter and flatter and more interwoven fibers. And then we took this big surface, about 5 meters diameter. This is in my studio, so we do a lot of testing and making there. We then draped this over a mold that we made, which was the form I showed you, and then more massaging. And this is the final form. We created this crater for the dog to nestle into. And what's interesting about it is this is Vato again. Like although we see this form and the blackness, there's another dimension, which is the smell. And the dog is so sensitive to the smells of the sheep's wool that I think this kind of carpet element, the kind of bottom skirt, it's a very kind of cozy, luxurious place where the dog just wants to wrap himself in the feeling of the architecture, you know, the smell of the architecture. So this is yeah, this is a finished piece, and our first test subject, I think, really enjoyed it.
Very much so. I remember from the photo shoot, which I was lucky enough to be present at, that every time there was a break in filming, Vato would go back immediately to do exactly this on your piece, very successfully, I think. Thank you very much. I can see that the handmade felt is such an important part of this piece. How does materiality and making, in fact, take place in your practice? How important is it for you?
Well, it's been important like since the beginning of the studio, and I think that's why Hara-san and I had a lot of things in common when we were having our early discussions, and a lot of information to exchange about the kind of the feeling of things and how our kind of natural instincts, sensory instincts, can help us design for other people, for their instincts. Now, there's a project that that I wanted to show you, which is in Korea, South Korea, which we made for Hyundai, the car company. And this was a project exploring you know, hydrogen as a new power source for vehicles. But we made the project as a a way of experiencing the blackness of space and starlight. So stars being the kind of mini fuel cells, which are in the sky, hydrogen fuel cells, that is. So the structure was covered with a nanomaterial called Vanta Black, and I think it's seen as like the largest. The largest nanostructure ever made. You could say. You could say. So nanostructure means very, very small, microscale or nanoscale. It's so fine that light photons go in and they get trapped in this nanostructure. Yeah, so it's like a coral reef. If you zoomed in really far, and a coral reef that things get stuck into. So I think 99.5 or 99.6% of light gets stuck into this. And we made the structure like a concave, which means that it sort of internally reflects the light. And to do this, we had a lot of experimentation and working with the scientists from the nanocoating manufacturer. We started actually working with them in around 2013. So this project was in 2018, but it was a long process to sort of to scale it up to the architectural scale, and that's kind of typical of us in the studio. We work with specialists for a long time to develop the kind of intelligence of their material systems. But you know, like even from making models like this is a kind of wooden model we've made for and scaling up these things for a museum in Sharjah, which we're working at the moment. Or even this is an unusual one. This is a small robot that we made in the studio to replicate the weaving process that a large machine would do to weave a piece of architecture. So this is something that you saw in the earlier presentation. This is elements of a piece of architecture which is woven from carbon fiber. These are the elements in the office, which we then worked with a manufacturer for about 2 years to develop a process where the fibers themselves, which are very, very strong, can be woven into a building. So the building's a bit like a mashrabiyya, which is a shading structure, creates shade. It's in Dubai. It's the entrance of the Dubai Expo, and it's this kind of idea of, first of all, weaving technology, which is so basic and traditional, but on the other hand, it's a futuristic modern fiber, let's say, and it resembles like the traditional mashrabiyya, but it's made in a way which resembles the future of construction. So I think that kind of, I really enjoy to play with these shifts in time and kind of awareness of skills and possibilities of the future.
Thank you very much.
Oops.
Fabulous.
You're back.
Fantastic architecture. Yeah, great. And I have a question, Nash. So by seeing this kind of the fantastic architecture, so I think this is easier for you to creating this kind of very exploring architecture. But old Asian people say that a dragon is easy, dog is difficult. This is talking about the way method of drawing things, because nobody see the dragon, real dragon. But the dragon is easy to draw. But because every person, every people will know about dogs. The reason why dog is very difficult to draw. So how do you think? So the architecture, you're always facing, the architects always creating dragon. But when the architect asked to create dogs, that is very difficult, I think. How do you think?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. It's easy to work at I think what you're saying is it's easy to work at the frontiers of your knowledge, like because you have it already defined, so you know where the edges are. But to jump into another part of knowledge that you have no idea of, you don't know where you're at, when you're at the frontier. I think I think it's very important that when you step into another frame of reference, that you have something like a user or dog to help guide you through that, actually, because we don't know when we reach the limit, actually. So I mean, I rely a lot on other people's impressions of what we do in order to know whether it was meaningful or not. I just do what I feel like, but I don't know whether it's any good until other people. If I find out it gives other people that feeling, I think Vato, who was the Boston Terrier in this example, it gave him some transcendental feelings, or some. He was attracted to this architecture. You know, when we were talking about the exhibition, it was interesting that some pieces that dogs found, they looked friendly and wonderful to us, but the dogs didn't find them as exciting and interesting for them. And this is the challenge, actually. What I like about the Architecture for Dogs project, and this is my opinion, right? So I might be wrong about this, but just in my mind, I'm thinking it's not really about architecture, like functional architecture for dogs. It's good if we can make that, but it's more of a conceptual project. It's about changing the medium that architects have to work in and stretching our imaginations. Because when we have to change medium, it's like we will be able to most succinctly describe who we are, and because we can leave all our baggage behind. Yeah, like we're not repeating ourselves. By changing medium, there are no rules anymore, and we have to say something without support of our previous portfolio, in a way. I think that's a wonderful place for kind of creativity to emerge.
Thank you. So I'm very satisfied with your solution. And
Thank you.
yeah, and the second question. So we always thinking about human environment when we tell about the environment, the human environment. We don't think about another creature's environment ever. But architecture for dogs is a kind of the new entrance about the new creation of architecture, I think. But I think second question is that, so if you are the director of this project, so if you can invite some architect in this project, which architect will be best, do you think?
Dead or alive? No. No. I'm going to pick a living architect, but actually, do you know the artist James Tyrell?
Yeah.
American artist.
A famous artist.
Famous artist, and you know, okay, this is just my feeling, but I think he's actually an architect. Maybe he doesn't know he's an architect, but in my opinion, I always think he's an architect, and he's not the architect like, you know, Norman Foster or something. He's an architect like the ancient architects, like who built the pyramids, like Imhotep, is like Egyptian architect. The architects who work with like land and the sky and the gods, this kind of scale of architect. And for those who don't know, like Tyrell is, I mean, you look up James Tyrell, his work is just, it's amazing. He's using a lot of light as a medium. So he's using light as architecture. And when you experience his work, you are transported to like a different state of mind, because his work is like, and then you lose yourself in this space, but the space is light. It's very, very unusual experience. I think, I don't know if James Tyrell would say yes, but let's ask him. But I'm very interested in like how an animal, like a dog, would respond to those worlds that James Tyrell creates, because they have the same biology as us. What kind of architecture could James Tyrell create for a dog? I think it could be very interesting.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Um,
I wonder, Asif, yes, do you have anything for Hara-san? I mean, we're extremely privileged to have Hara-san with us, of course, all the way from Tokyo. I wonder if you have anything for him.
well, you know what? One thing I'm always wondering about Hara-san. I know we have lots of conversations over the years, and every time we meet, you show me new ideas, and there will be a new book or new exhibition. And you know, off the top of my head, haptic and synthware and house vision and architecture for dogs is part of it. Neo Prehistoria with Andrea Branzi, and designing Japan. All of these huge topics, and there's connections between them, but also they're really different worlds. So I want to know, like, what is it that drives you, like, year after year, to explore these topics? And is it that you're interested in educating yourself or educating us, or in evolving society? Like, what is the drive for you?
Okay. And I don't know in the detail, but I think I always want to make a relation in between myself to all the detail of the world. That is my basic situation. So that's the reason why I selected design so as my life work. Design is a kind of the action to make a relationship to the whole the detail of the world. That is very important point.
There's interesting, please.
So when I see the Italian macaroni, so I can recognize a small pasta macaroni as an architecture. So why this macaroni is shaped this kind of forms? Is that a function? Is that aesthetic or something? So I always make a question, how? So architecture for macaroni. So then that is my first steps. So when I realize that macaroni as an architecture, so I try to step back more and more. Dog is the second and third or fourth step for me. And architecture for dogs is a first project of the architecture for project. So architecture for something. This is a bracket. We put a dog as the first theme of this project. I can imagine architecture for sound, right? Architecture for sleeping, architecture for swimming, everything. When I put something in this bracket, we can find out a new frontier of creation. That's very interesting. So I enjoy learning always.
It kind of leads on to something else I wanted to ask you about, which is really about aesthetics. But I feel today that many clients and general, everyone around, they see like aesthetics and beauty, maybe aesthetic refinement, as like an unnecessary addition, unnecessary add-on to design. You know, design is about problem solving, but beauty is not about problem solving. And so it's always seen as expensive. And maybe the idea that beauty has been demoted to a lower level of importance. We were talking about before, like this social scientist of the 15th century, Ibn Khaldun, and he said that in society, when you have a dynasty which is in its demise, the relationship between the importance of artisans and artistry also starts to decline. Yeah. I'm just wondering, what is your thought on this, and what can we do today to create a kind of rebirth of aesthetic values?
Very deep question. So I think the style of aesthetic or style of beauty is always changing. Years and years, age by age. The style of aesthetic is always changing. But I think the essence of beauty or essence of aesthetic is not changed, I think. The most important thing is not to create some fantastic, wonderful object. No, not to create a wonderful object, but to create people who can aware that, who can aware how wonderful the world is. So I always think I'm just creating the question, or I'm always awakening people how little we know about the world. If we can make people awaken the wonderful situation of the world, the people can always find out a new style of beauty in this context. In my attitude, how do you think?
I think this is I love this idea, and I kind of wonder whether we need to educate or people. How do you provide the stimulus? Is it through? I mean, what you're saying is the work is a stimulus, but is there also like almost primary school teaching that we have to make sure that children have access to like certain experiences which help them cultivate their awareness of the beauty of the world? That feels like something that we need to do, you know? Can you teach it?
人々にその美しさの概念というか、そのクリエイティビティみたいなものを教えられるんでしょうか、その子どもたちにでも、その美しさを感じる感覚というか。
So you told me that your father had a good eye to see something. Your father had a good eye to see some beauty, so to grasp the beauty of the world. So I think your father's good eye had influenced you to as a kind of the great creation. So that influence is a kind of the education, I think. Education is not to giving the much information to the children or students. So we always make an influence to find out so how little we know about the world, that is. So in this project, so this is a architecture for dog project is a kind of the education, I think. So by seeing this project, if the student or if the children are aware that how little we know about the dogs, or how little we know about the circumstance, or how little we know the relationship in the man and the human-made environment. That kind of awakening is deeply important relationship in the education, to the education, I think.
Yes. Actually, one of the things I'm sorry, we're going on. I know time's running out, but one of the things I love about the project is the Architects for Dogs project is because it helps people understand what is architecture, because you don't even architecture is such a big thing and a complicated thing. I think a normal average person doesn't know what architecture is, but when you reduce the scale and put it in front of them and a subject matter, everyone knows dogs, yeah, like as you're saying, suddenly you understand what architecture is because you've seen it in one glimpse. You understand this is the outcome. I think architecture for humans is sometimes too complex to comprehend because it's just too big a topic. But everyone knows a doghouse, or everyone knows like this animal and how it feels. It's a kind of model, almost, yeah, like a scale model of what architecture is. And in a way, I found that very helpful as well to observe the other architects and myself as well, like to get to the essence of what our creativity is.
So not a scale model, but a real scale model of architects.
Real scale, yes, yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Hara-san.
Thank you. I mean, we have some questions that are coming in from our audience. Would you be prepared to take some questions, Hara-san and Asif, at this juncture?
質問に答えていただいてもよろしいですか
Yes, of course.
Of course. Okay, so our first question here to both of you, of course. Should architects be more mindful about the animals that inhabit people's architectural or urban spaces? Could this be a way in which the natural and built environment can be integrated?
That's, yeah. So
Maybe
Hara-san.
はい、はい、人々はあれでしょうか、原さん、その建築において建築を作るときにもうちょっと動物のことを考慮した方がいいでしょうか。その都市部においてもその建物においてもそうですけれども、それが自然とその建物の融合ということにつながりますか。
I don't know, but if you are aware that relationship in between the human scale environment and the dog scale environment, you can get a more fantastic eye to research something. That viewpoint can create a more fantastic architectural environment, I think. But not only the animal, but also the everything, every creatures, and even with the COVID-19, not only the human isn't living on the earth. Many creatures and many lives are living on the earth. So thinking or thought to focus on this viewpoint, I think the environment or urban or society will be more comfort for the living creatures, not only human.
Yeah, I feel the same, really, that they and I think you can address it with design. If we look at nature, I was thinking about this. I went swimming like a snorkeling, a few years ago, and I remember after about 10 minutes, I was being followed by 20 fish. They were just following me everywhere, and I think they were looking that I'm for me dropping some food or something, but there was a sort of symbiosis, this feeling of quite comfort in the comfort, even though you're different species, you're moving comfortably together as part of like some kind of system. And you see that with whale sharks and coral reefs. They are different organisms working together. I think cities, we see it, of course, like birds use the city, but the cities are really not so attractive actually for other animals. I think there's we should find ways to bring nature into our lives. I mean, that's it. We are part of nature. I think that's one of the real big topic of the day, actually, isn't it? Really, that we're destroying the earth, and we've spent, 500 years or 200 years, kind of post-industrial revolution, undoing all of the work that nature did, for like 1 billion years. So I think we can do some small steps to start to improve that relationship. Yeah, I think it's a very, very beautiful idea. Everyone should work on it. It should be in the kind of manifesto for all designers, like to take on this challenge.
Thank you very much. We have several questions now coming in, so maybe I'll go on to the next one. This is from Ellen. Thank you so much for today and for the extraordinary exhibition. My question is to both Hara-san and Asif. What would your dream medium be to create architecture with?
Create medium.
はい、素材というか、その方法も含めてですね。いいでしょうか。
もう一回質問をお願いします。どんな素材を使って？
夢の素材は何ですか？その建築を作るにあたって夢の素材または方法も含めて。
So this question is for Asif, maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
You are always looking for the dream material.
I am, yeah. I mean, I didn't show the images of this, but Hara-san, you've seen some of those projects. I made architecture from clouds, from plants, from nanomaterials, and sometimes I was thinking we keep trying in the office to do something with water, to make architecture from water, and water is in our bodies, right? It's don't know which percentage, 2/3 of our body is water. So it's quite interesting to make architecture from water. I think it is, and the boundary between water and air is something very, very beautiful. And surface tension is a very beautiful thing, but it happens at a very small scale. So how to create surface tension at a large scale, that's quite interesting for me. I mean, Yves Klein, also the artist, he was trying to make architecture of air, right? This is some very beautiful idea. Water, and also, the other one that I've been thinking about is just like soil and mud, and very like earth is something very beautiful. And it's almost it's biblical. Adam came from the beginnings of the earth, the beginnings of all the living creatures. It's like the water and the earth. I think these two things we can make many beautiful things of. And if you look at the great mosque in Mali, in Timbuktu, the great mosque, it's a example of amazing earth architecture. It's so beautiful, and I think that architecture needs to be evolved. It's one of those great works of mankind. So actually, you can make architecture from anything, but humans probably have made it from most things, but different materials have different resilience to the environment. So you have to just choose how long you want your architecture to last for. Whether it's 5,000 years or, nowadays, people don't know this, but most architecture is designed for only 50 years. That is a kind of idea of permanent now, but it's not permanent at all, actually. Most architecture is temporary, like 100% really of architecture is temporary. So that's a very interesting topic, actually.
Thank you.
I think I like the authentic material, like a stone, a mud, a wood, like that. So our iron, steel. So I call it senseware. Senseware is a kind of the material to stimulate the human creativity. So the stone is a very most old senseware to stimulate the human creativity. When the human hand meets a stone, the human has awakened to break something with this tool, with this material. Stone is a very fantastic senseware to stimulate, to fire up the human's creativity. And the paper is a very fantastic material to create, to stimulate the human creativity. No, paper is not only the printing material, not all the media. The whiteness and the crispy and very easy to be broken is a very important point of the paper material. Please imagine to draw something on a white paper, like a musician to make a sound in front of the auditorium filled with people. Very quiet. When the musician create the first sounds, fantastic. The white paper is like a auditorium filled with people. So the white paper is very easy to be soiled. That kind of situation stimulates the human creativity. So of course, I like the advanced technology and the very fantastic advanced material. But sometimes this kind of old material, like a stone and a mud, and a tree, wood, and metal, is a kind of the dream material, even today, I think.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We have maybe time for, maybe we've got lots of questions come through. Maybe we've got time for maybe 2 more questions but maybe if we can keep the answers quite brief in order to be able to ensure that we have the questions coming in. We have an architecture student, American architecture student, Bushra, is from Cornell University, is asking, and this is pertinent to a couple of questions that have come through, actually. How does one transform art into architecture? Is there a line between the two?
原さん、芸術をその建築に変えるにはどうしたらいいんでしょうか。そこの境界線はどこにありますか？
So I can understand the necessity to transform art to architecture. So there is no boundary in between the design and architecture and art, I think. No boundary, I think.
Thank you.
Perfect answer.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And we have, yes, and this is actually maybe for you, Asif. So it focuses on the piece from the Architecture for Dogs exhibition. This is a very, very inspiring talk. I wonder, Asif, if you could, I don't know if you have more pictures or if you could let us know what goes on beneath the final surface. Is there a structure underneath your piece, or is it a piling up of layers? And how did you achieve the beautiful curve around the base?
Okay. I don't have a picture with me, but I have a what can I show you? Okay, maybe I can show this actually. How do I share screen very quickly? There is a what is underneath? Okay, do you know that there's a piece of furniture that some people might have noticed is similar to this work? Because essentially the piece I made is like a cross between a table and a carpet, if you think about it in very simple terms, right? There is already a piece of furniture that exists like that, and is being used by many societies around the world. And in Japan, it's called a kotatsu. They have the same architecture, like same object in Afghanistan. It's called a korsi. I think it's also in Iran. It's in Spain as well. So this cross between a table and a carpet, and people use it in cold winters. That you put your feet underneath that table surface. I wonder if I can find a picture of it very quickly. I probably can't in the time. But for those of you, if you look up kotatsu or korsi, you'll see this thing. So what we made underneath it is like a wooden table, very simple, pure circle, and it has a hole cut in it, and that hole is yeah. I mean, the table has 4 legs. It's very, very pure, simple shape, and a hole cut in it. It's very, very simple. And then the form was it's like a natural drape of the felt, but we used a former, which we made. So the idea of the project is DIY, right? All of the things can be made at home. So we thought that people could make their own form. You can drape the felt on anything, right? You can drape it on a table. You can make something from cardboard, and you create your own form. In our project, because it's such a big form, we used a like a 5-axis CNC machine to make our form. So that's not a home process. Although if you have if you have the time, you can make that. You can do that by hand. You can make the form with plywood. And some of the other people, some of the other projects in the Architecture Dogs have used a plywood form inside, like Kazuyo Sejima's piece. So yeah, it's a look up a kotatsu and you'll see what's inside.
Yes, we've just been able to send through a link to everybody so that they can see what a kotatsu is themselves. So thank you.
And what a wonderful thing kotatsu is. There are still, I think, in the possibilities of many types of furniture that people can't imagine today, that we should try to create. Like, there's no reason why chairs should be like chairs, or tables like tables, or buildings like buildings. It's all these things are possible. Even strange combinations like the kotatsu.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Hara-san, I have to say thank you very much indeed. We're very proud at Japan House London to have been able to show Architecture for Dogs, and we're very proud that Asif, his piece is the legacy from Japan House London for the Architecture for Dogs project, which you initiated and which you direct. So thank you very much indeed for allowing us to show it for the first time in Europe at Japan House London. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, of course, it's closed at the moment, the exhibition, due to government guidelines. But it is scheduled to open on the 3rd of December, we hope. again. So there will be time to see it again. So anybody who's been watching, please do come to Japan House after the 3rd of December to see Architecture for Dogs. Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you very much, Asif, for taking.
Thank you very much, Simon. Thank you
so much.
Bye.
Thank you very much indeed. We've enjoyed it very much indeed. Just before we go, from a note from Japan House London that we will be showing. We're doing a series with JAXA, which of course is the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, and the first one of those starts on the 18th of November, searching for the origins of the universe. We will be partnering with our friends in Japan at JAXA. Should be very interesting. Please do look out for further information on our website. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hara-san, all the way from Tokyo. And thank you very much, Asif, for joining us this morning. Many thanks.
Thank you, Hara-san. Thank you, Sam. Thanks.
Okay then. Thank you very much. And thank you, Air, as well. Thank you for helping. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you, and stay safe.